so far we've used IDs and classes and just regular HTML tags as selectors to select HTML elements and style them in our style sheet. But we can also use another technique that will work in styling certain HTML elements that have an href or a source. So something like an image that has a source, or an A tag with an href. Okay, so this is specific to those things that have href or sources, but go ahead and enter the following code. I'm going to bring this up a little bit. Let's do image, and then we do the square bracket. SRC, because images have sources, not hrefs. And then the star, and then equals, and then a single quotes, landscape. I'm going to put in landscape. Make sure I spell it right. Landscape. Okay. And then on the outside of this, we do the curly bracket, return, and let's put a height of 50 pixels on our landscape image. Okay, so we're actually targeting all images on our HTML page that have landscape in the source path, which this one has it, which is awesome. And I think that's it, actually. We only have that one. The A tag also has a landscape.jpg that it's links to, but it's an href, so we would have to change this and make it a little different. But anyway, since we're using the source, it's just going to get this smaller image here, not the larger one that it opens up into when we click on it. So we're just going to be getting that one image. So let's go into here, and let's go into here and refresh this and see if that worked for us. Yeah, it did. So it made that really small. It didn't affect the larger image though, because we did not target that one in our CSS. We just targeted the one that was here, the smaller one. So let's keep working. That's just kind of an interesting one. This is actually a new way of doing it. I've never heard of this before, but it's kind of nifty. So any word that contains landscape in an image tag would be, the height of that would be changed to 50 pixels basically. Let's add in some more default styling, like a universal tag here underneath the first one that we put in. So we start with that star, space, curly brackets, push return, and margin. And let's put 0. This just helps with the styling that the browser puts on it. So, and then padding 0, and I'll show you what it does. So if we save that, look at the spacing here before we push refresh. It's looking like this right now, but if we push refresh, it will get rid of all of the margin and padding and set it to 0. So we're basically zeroing out all of the margin and padding. And margin and padding was covered in detail in Codecademy under the box model. So, and basically that just removed all the styling that the browser puts automatically on the HTML. And then we also want to add this part into our style sheet. And this should be added on most HTML, CSS documents. Box sizing, border, box, and we want to say, yeah, box sizing, border, box. So all of these two things honestly should be on your personal website. So make sure to save that. This doesn't necessarily need to be there, especially if you're not concerned with font family. Like if you're, you don't have to use Verdana, but you might want to try and use a web-safe font and bring that in and put that here. So you don't have to use Verdana. I highly suggest you find a different one. Okay, so navigation. We're going to start styling our navigation because it just looks like a couple of really plain links right now. So let's go ahead and go in styles, and let's put a background color on our navigation of purple. I'm just going to put in purple because I'm trying to save some time here. Okay, save that. And now let's go ahead and focus on the nav again. Let's go ahead and make the nav text white. So we want to make the text in the navigation white. And in order to do that, we have to, let me push return a couple times. We need to really target the A in the nav. So nav ULLIA. So we're going several elements deep here. So we could go into nav ULLIA. We are actually going to be targeting this link text within the A. Okay, so this is how we call that out in our style sheet. Color, and let's do a hex color. I actually memorized white because it's just all Fs. There's 6 Fs and the pound sign for a hex value here. So let's go ahead and refresh this in our browser and see how that looks. That looks pretty good. Okay, let's keep going with the nav styling. Actually, nav styling can take a long time, so let's do text align center to the, and we'll add that in to the nav. So text align and do center. So save that. We can refresh and see what that does. That puts it in the center for us, which is a little bit, I don't know, maybe we want it in the center instead of off to the side. Let's do a nav. Let's add it in a nav. Oops, nav UL. Just the ordered list. We're not going as far as the LI or the A tags, but we want to do a list style of none. So go ahead and enter that in. Do a Command S. And let's just move on to some more declarations here. We want to get rid of the underlines in the nav. The text decoration selector will help us with that. So we'll put that under nav ULLIA. Or actually, let's just do it under nav UL. Yeah, actually, I think we can put it under just this one here, because that's the actual link text. So text decoration, let's try to find that. None. So that will get rid of the, oops, that will get rid of the underline. So let's go into Chrome and refresh. And that got rid of our underline, so that's great. Let's keep going. Let's adjust some of the spacing around the navigation links. We can add in a padding to nav UL. So let's just add a little bit of space around the navigation UL items, the unordered list on the top and the bottom. And let's just put it all the way around, actually, so we can do padding of like maybe 15 pixels. Save that. Let's go into here and we can see what that did for us. And that just made a little bit more padding inside of our UL, which is our unordered list that has the list items and the links inside of it. So that's looking better. Okay. So let's put the width of the nav to 100%. So 100%, Command S that. And let's go ahead and, didn't do much because it already was set to 100%, but it's good to set a width to it. I could make it 100 pixels. You don't necessarily have to do this, but I just want to show you what that looks like. We don't want that, so obviously I'll just switch it back to the percentage. Save that. Okay, let's make the navigation fixed to the top of the page. It's kind of neat to mess around with that. So under the nav selector in the style sheet, let's put in position fixed. And I think you have to put a width on it before you put on position fixed, because I think it needs a width on it for this to work. But if we scroll, you can see that the elements on the page stay underneath. They almost scroll underneath. So that makes the nav fixed to the top of the page no matter what, if we're scrolling. So that's kind of fun. So let's add some spacing between home and contact, and we can do that on nav LI. So nav UL LI. Let's just go as far as list item, not to the link. And padding. This will just make it look a little bit more spaced out. I can show you that. So keep your eye on that. It did create 15 pixels all the way around each LI item, which makes it look a little bit more legible. And then we can also, in under nav li, ulli, let's go ahead and put in a float of left. Save that, and we can see what that does. So that makes them float next to each other. So instead of taking up the whole width of the nav, the LI items have come up next to each other and floated across from each other. And so sometimes if you don't want HTML elements to stack, you have to float them left. So that's working out pretty good. But we do want to create a margin and a margin on this. So under nav ulli, let's put in a margin of auto and 0. And this will just make them go into the middle of the... So a margin of 0 in auto is really important for styling elements if you want them to show up in the middle of the web browser page. So remember that one, because you're probably going to want to do that to a lot of your elements when you create your website. Did that do anything? No, maybe I didn't save it. Yeah, maybe I forgot something here. I might have to put a width on it. Oh, I meant to put 50% here. So let's try a percentage here and refresh that. Okay, so that did it for us. It put it in the middle. So auto 50% works pretty well. It always splits up the LI into 2. So 50% is obviously half of 100. So let's start styling some other elements on the page, starting with the first image. Let's see, I think we may need to, oops, didn't mean to go there. But we can't see our first image currently. Like if I push down here, you can kind of see it, but we need to put it below the nav. We actually need to bump it down below the nav because the nav is fixed, so it's actually floating over the top of this image. So we do need to fix that. So we need to put a padding top on the main tag. So the main tag holds the image. If we go into the HTML, you can see here's the main. And then we go into our figure with the image in it. So we do need to put some styling on that main tag to push the image down. So I guess I'll put this underneath the P tag. Type in main. And let's add in some styling, padding top. So, and we want to put in 160 pixels-ish, somewhere around there. And that should bump it down, I believe. Yeah, it does. So if we scroll, now it will actually stay 160 pixels downward on the main. So that is nice. Let's add the following code to style CSS. I'm just going to go down here. Image. We're going to do this type of call out. So this is going to target all of the image tags with the word smaller in it. And let's put a height on it of 300 pixels. Save that and refresh our browser. So that made it bigger. The height isn't quite right. Let's make it 600. See how that goes. There we go. That's a little bit better. I think it's still a little squished, but we did make it bigger through the CSS. We can target that smaller image and make it a little bit bigger using the CSS as well. So I'm going to have to stop there, and hopefully we'll only have one more video after this.